रोशनी का कारवां।
This podcast is brought to you by Barrier Break Solutions Private Limited and Score Foundation.
Hi, my name is George Abraham, and welcome to this edition of Eyeway Conversation. My guest today is Ekinath Khedekar. He's been in the corporate world for over 10 years. He's also a person involved with lawn tennis for the blind. Welcome, Ekinath. Good to have you on the show.
Same here. Thank you very much, George.
Yeah. So, Ekinath, this lawn tennis for the blind, how did you get involved with it and what is it all about? How do blind people play tennis?
I got introduced to it in the UK while studying for MSc Sustainability at UCL, London. The fundamental change is the ball. So the ball has some small bearings which make jingling noise while it travels even in the air. Court is much smaller, and how they feel the orientation of the service line, the baseline is we have these ropes stuck to the court surface, and we can feel it even if you're wearing good shoes, canvas shoes. Now about the rackets, because the ball currently is being manufactured by just one manufacturer and it's a delicate one, we cannot use the usual senior rackets. So we use junior rackets, smaller versions, lighter versions of say 21, 23, 25 inches size. So I really took up, got hooked up to the game, played well, and also had opportunity to play in the UK regionals, and then came back, introduced in India.
Ekinath, you've worked with Reliance Power for nearly 10 years. Can you kind of briefly tell us what was your journey in Reliance Power like, and what were the kind of responsibilities and work that you did there?
Initially, I joined their corporate strategy team. I was a finance grad from the B school, so gave my best. But in corporate situation, George, time is an essence, and corporate strategy, unfortunately, was the most demanding of the departments in my organization. And we would need to complete some assignments within like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. So even nobody could challenge the accuracy of my work or, the quality, but I was slower than able-bodied B grads. So I decided that, no, I want to perform where I'm 100%. And I sat down with my boss and we recognized that, hey, listen, I have passion towards law also. I have done my LLB along with BA Economics. And I focused on that. And power industry being such a regulated industry, it always impacts your top line and bottom line in a big way. I realized that, hey, this was an important job and I'm good at it. And it gave me good recognition in the organization. And by 2015, I was one of the go-to persons for regulatory research and advice.
So you also did some work in the area of solar energy and CSR.
Because I have a nomadic tribe background, I have seen how my own small hamlet getting affected by climate change. And I said sustainability is the passion of my life. And that's why I finished off my MSc in sustainability from University College London in 2016, thanks to a very generous scholarship by the UK government. Came back, and that's where the story of renewables and the solar power development begins. So I wanted to quit, and my boss offered me to join. He's a smart gentleman. He said that if you want to do work in sustainability, why not develop solar power plants, because it's a clean power. And it was a very convincing argument. I joined the renewables team, worked for them for a very short time, because I realized that by then Reliance Power and Anil Dhirubhai Ambani Group wasn't doing well. We were not having enough equity to invest in new projects. So that would have been a stagnancy. So I shifted to CSR because we had decent budgets. I wanted to get connected to people. I wanted to do well even in the area of development. So that gave me an opportunity, and I recently finished off heading the CSR with a decent budget to spend We worked in the area of education, healthcare, rural development, climate change, sanitation, and I'm glad that I could do whatever I could in these 4 states of Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, MP, Rajasthan, and very, very backward areas where we could impact 25,000 households. So that's where I finished first as a finance professional, corporate strategy, regulatory, then solar development, and then finally CSR. And now have joined a very reputed and very good conglomerate of Wipro. I've joined Wipro Limited, and now I'm heading supply diversity for all the geographies on planet where Wipro operates.
The supplier diversity, can you just demystify it a little bit?
So supply diversity is basically when big companies take a very responsible position saying that, hey, listen, I have become big and I spend $2 billion or $10 billion or $50 billion through my suppliers. So in case of Wipro, we do a lot of manpower staffing kind of operations. We buy stuff because we have so many offices around the world. So we give contracts to the say, simple example is canteen agency or say transport agency. So when we spend to our vendors, can we be a little more conscious and say, listen, hey, can we give it to the entrepreneur, this business who belongs to this section, who is Afro-American or who is historically marginalized, who is a Native American or who is a women-led entity or who is PWD-led entity. And this thought has become very big now. All the MNCs, be it Intel, Wipro, HP, Dell, Apple, all these big companies are having a global mandate to diversify their supply chain. CSR has been mandated by law, and companies think about CSR only when they make profits, because that's what law says. If you make profit, then you spend 2% of your last 3 years average profit, right?
Right.
It's not part of your main business. Any person who understands finance will understand, looking at the P&L, profit and loss sheet, that, hey, this comes at the bottom, at the last. But supplier diversity is like you are integrating the marginalized right in your business. You're saying, hey, listen, we are going to go on a tour for economic growth. Do you want to come along? And you give a fair chance to that disadvantaged individual or a business, saying you have a chance to present your case, and let's see if you can, get involved in our supply chain and prosper with us. So I find this role very exciting. Of course, the magnanimity of this role is that it's all pervasive. It's in major geographies of the world. And I hope to contribute whatever way I can, because it comes from the very core of my belief that whatever solutions as PWDs or any marginalized want is, we want to be in the mainstream.
You are highly educated. You've got several degrees. You have got 2 graduate degrees, one in economics, the other in law. You have a postgraduate degree in management from a prestigious the Bajaj Institute in Mumbai. You also have a master's degree from the University College of London. So I just wanted to have your thoughts on, I'd like you to share your experience of studying in a special environment and in a kind of inclusive environment.
I think, George, that's a very critical and a very important question to be asked in current situation in Indian setup. In Indian setup is a very underlined phrase, because many of my friends suggest that integrated schooling, that is a PWD's child going to the school, is okay. But ask me a child who did not who grew up in a very, very acute poverty situation, who grew up with family where not a single member had studied more than 10th standard, who was growing up in slums, who did not have father to guide him. For such a situation, I think my school, Happy Home and School for the Blind, was a big boon. And I'll try and explain that. Reason being, I could meet my friends who are from better families. They came up from families where their parents were educated. They could talk. So I was exposed to something better than the condition that I was living in. So
Right.
I tell my friends, George, thank goodness, I mean, blindness happened. Maybe otherwise I would have been maybe another goon in my slum. So because that was the traits initially.
Right.
And my mother also said the same thing. So I do not want to glorify disability, but I would say that really depends. We need to have a mixed system. Our country thrives on everything's mixed. So I think situation where a child is able to play like an equal, can find systems and friends who are like him, is very important for his confidence and his growth. At the same time, can he go and study in a mainstream school and get exposed to the subjects which this schools meant for visually impaired don't teach, that I'm aware of? For example, I was good in arithmetic, mathematics, but my school, for whatever reason, wouldn't teach us mathematics beyond 7th standard.
What about your time in college?
Someone who had come to our school as a volunteer to teach English said, if you want to learn, if you want a job, because that was always my worry, I wanted a job to help my mother. And if you want a job, you want to learn English. And if you want to learn English, you should go to an environment where people speak English. And then St. Xavier's was selected, and it turned out to be a paradise. We got good support in the form of XRCVC, that is Xavier's Resource Center for Visually Challenged. In fact, we were the founding beneficiaries, if I can say. So that experience just helped me compete. And then competing in MBA school was a completely different experience, George, not because of my disability, but the streams. So in Xavier's, very high standard of ethics, very, very high standards of sincerity toward education, towards attendance. Whereas when I went to MBA and I saw nothing mattered, what mattered is coming at the top, be it through whatever means, and that was very unsettling. And thanks to MBA, I got a job. But the one education, George, I have done not for practical reasons, for something I really wanted to learn, is my MSc from University College London. I did MBA because someone said, hey, you want to earn 5 times more, you need to do MBA, you'll get a good package. I did it. Someone said, you want to learn English, go to St. Xavier's College. I went to St. Xavier's College. Law and MSc Sustainability I have done just because I liked the subjects. And I was lucky to get to this Chevening scholarship. And UK was absolutely a stunning experience. What is a conceptual understanding of basic things which in an Indian system just rush off. That was not the case. The system itself is very rigorous, so it kind of induces you to do the course in a very deep, rigorous manner. You cannot get away. You just can't get away by mugging up stuff for 2 hours and writing papers. So that was a different experience. Again, wonderful support, very accessible systems, very friendly environment. And yes, living in London, a developed country, was absolutely a life-changing experience for me in true sense.
If you know of anyone with vision impairment who needs guidance on living life with blindness, please share the Eyeway National Toll-Free Helpline number 1800-5320-469. The number is 1800-5320-469.
While any conversation with you will not be complete if we do not speak about your passion for the outdoor. You've talked extensively about your interest in running half marathons, your interest in cycling, your interest in swimming. How did you get interested in all this? And tell us a little bit about how you actually go about these things.
Sure. George, all those things sounds good. MBA from JBIM is a top B school, Chevening Scholar of the UK government, the first Indian blind, and everything is all right. But then the child which grew in slums doesn't go away. Those tough experiences don't go away. It does not mean that I brood over it. I really enjoy that whatever I've lived. And bottom line I realized after, at the age of this juncture and decent achievements is that one needs to be happy. That's it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're working in as a telephone operator, or you're working in a bank, or you're working in some wonderful Wall Street investment bank. You need to be happy. And I realized my happiness lied in nature. My happiness lie in outdoors. And I was always sporty. Even during board exams, as I said, I used to play cricket. Then during college, I took up half marathons. I used to go trekking. Gave me pleasure is sports, and I took a big time when I came to the UK. I said this will be the tool for me to promote inclusive sports. So as a student, there was one time when I fought for access to study books, but now it was for visibility. It was for mainstreaming. It was for simple conversations that PWDs can have with able-bodied part of the society. And the sports is a wonderful enabler I've seen. So how I go about doing is, while working with Reliance, I would work for 6 days and I will just have one day, but I'll make sure that I get up early in the morning, go for practice, run hard, or go for cycling. So thanks to ABBF, Adventures Beyond Barriers Foundation, they have introduced tandem cycling. I went from Pune to Goa. Of course, this happens after a lot of training in the gym on outdoors. But that tandem cycling is a very known game or known sports in Mumbai, at least. We have regular cycling expeditions happening now. So Manali to Khardungla is one beautiful experience. ABBF facilitated it out and out, but we had to train really hard. To explain you the challenge or the excitement of it is, I'm not sure how many of our listeners must have experienced high altitude sickness.
Yeah.
Where, so maybe George, you're very sporty, you must have experienced it, but when you're not able to breathe, even walking few steps, few paces become difficult. And we had taken up this expedition where we'll go from Manali to Khardungla, about 560 kilometers or so, from the height of 3.5, 4,000 feet to 18,000 feet.
Wow.
So, but that was a memorable experience, right from Manali or Kullu Valley to Chenab and its tributaries and those gushing waterfalls, cold, barren lands, description by friends, cited friends, my pilot, as we call it, my navigator. So how it works is, this is a tandem cycle, friends. And आप दो cycle ले लीजिए. The front cycle you remove the back wheel, the hind cycle you will remove the front wheel and you join it. That's how the tandem cycle leaves. It has single chain, 2 pedals, 2 seats, and front handle is movable. So the navigator, the able-bodied person, sits on the front seat, but you are the stoker. You have to make sure that you pedal as good or better than your pilot. So my pilot was an Australian 65-year-old, fittest man of that age I've seen. We had a wonderful time, 10 days continuous cycling every day. Of course, not for 24/7, but every day for 5 hours, 8 hours. But I've seen perhaps the best part of our country in terms of weather, beauty, everything.
Yeah, during the course of our conversation, several times you did mention about your difficult background, a difficult childhood. Can you talk a little bit about the childhood? Because I think I would like our listeners to know that the starting point in life doesn't really matter. It is more to do with your own aspirations, your own effort, and your willingness to challenge yourself. So I think it's very relevant for our audience to know the kind of background you actually started life from.
I was born in a caste. Now, we can't get away with caste in India. And I was born in a nomadic tribe caste, very close to Mumbai, in a place called Chiplun. But even the literacy rate is very low. And unfortunately, I lost my father at the age of 2. And that made things worse because my mother was not educated and she had to bring up 4 children in a very backward area of Mumbai, slum area. And now, when I was 5-6 year old, we realized that hey, I couldn't see the board, and then blindness was the reality of life. Uh, I I could see a little, but not good enough to study in school. So all those tough times that all the disabled folks go through, acceptance, marginalization, um, the prospect of life, and because my family was not exposed to all the development happening in the area, we were really worried. But as I said earlier, that once my vision kept reducing and I reached a stage by 5th standard where I just could not continue in the mainstream school, Marathi medium school, I was admitted to Happy Women's School for the Blind in Worli. And that was a boon, because suddenly I had hope. I had, children with similar abilities or disabilities, and we could play. It was a happy life. It was, I call it my Hogwarts, because that founded my takeoff. In couple of years, I was as good as any happy might. You will realize that in mainstream school, I was demotivated for whatever reason, small comments and whatever. But Happy Home, I realized that, hey, listen, some volunteer is very encouraging with that smiling face and telling you, listen, you want a job, child, you need to learn English and you're smart. And those encouragements really help, thanks to volunteers like Roshni Boat. That's why volunteerism is so important, that you never know whose life you will touch. But this wonderful ladies and gentlemen did touch my lives, and I said, hey, listen, if you want to help my mother, if you want to help my sisters, my family, I need to do better.
Ekinath, it was wonderful speaking with you. It was, your story is, I shouldn't be using the word inspiring, but it is truly inspiring and motivating. You started several yards behind the starting line, but you have caught up with the world, and may you have greater power, and may you keep running the race of life with gusto, energy, and be happy and bring happiness to many people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, George. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Thank you.
To support our work with the blind and visually impaired, you can visit the donate page on our website www.scorefoundation.org.in. Please note www.scorefoundation.org.in. This podcast was brought to you by Barrier Break Solutions Private Limited and Score Foundation.
Eyeway, ये है रोशनी का कारवा।